don't have a space for them, I can go to the Facebook Live.
We are right now 100 already, including the people in the waiting room. So if we admit everybody, close na.
Yes, yes. And then pagka pasok ni Aldrin, kung wala siya sa 100 at yung kailangan, then I think I can go to Facebook Live para ibigay yung slot.
Jan, makaka-admit pa ba pagka 100 nang nasa loob?
Hindi na Bing. Somebody has to leave.
We'll have to
That's why.
Muna.
So that we can start, kung yung ating panelists ay hindi nakasama dun sa 100, then some of us organizers can give to welcome them. So don't worry. We will handle that. So that we can now formally start.
Yeah, okay. We're on live now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can move out also.
Saliendra. Okay. Sito is here. Si Aldrin na lang po ang wala.
Okay na. Maybe he's in the 100, so we can start. Or do you want Bing to have picture muna nung lahat ng mga speakers before we... Kasi later on, marami na.
Pero hindi po ako ang marunong mag-screenshot dito from the laptop.
Okay, would you like to do that, Jan? Brother Romel, Bishop Bert, and Ma'am Hannah, if you can open your picture so that we will now start. Sarap ng ngiti ni Brother Romel. Okay.
Fully booked na ba?
Okay na. So we can...
Taga-UK.
Fully booked na po. Fully booked na.
Okay.
Open si Aldrin, wala pa.
You take the picture na, then we can start.
Sure
Okay.
po yung dais, hindi yon si Aldrin.
Hindi.
Kasi late na ako.
Well, wala pa si Aldrin Peñalosa.
Hindi niya ako sinagot eh.
Tingnan mo, ano lang, may Aldrin Dice lang.
Yeah,
Aldrin
Sir Robert.
Miss Bing,
Okay,
can
start.
you enable me to share
Let's just give
screen?
him the place pagpasok.
Picture. I will admit everybody na.
Okay na.
Lang sa FB.
Okay na, I'll admit all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kung hindi ako tanggap dito ako. Ayun na.
Ayan na si kanya. Oh my God. Nakahabol.
Everybody ay nata. Afternoon, everybody.
Wala pa.
Pwede ko marinig?
Yes, can you allow me to share the screen later? Okay. Miss Bing.
Yeah.
Mr. Bing.
Po. Yan, okay. Po.
Miss Bing, can you allow the account of Bishop to enable muted. Enable screen sharing for Archbishop Tony.
Okay, I'll do that. Maybe we can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. May we request you to settle down now? We'll be starting in a minute. We would like to request everyone to mute their microphones. We will have the possibility of muting it just in case afterwards. But in the meantime, can you mute all your microphones? We'll be starting in less than a minute. Okay, we would like to invite everyone to put ourselves in God's presence and open our hearts and minds for the opening prayer.
Dakilang may likha sa kalingat pangunawa, mangyari ang iyong diwa sa langit at sa lupa. Bigyan mo ng sapat ang lahat sa araw-araw, turo ang magparaya gaya ng iyong gawa. Iadyan niyo kami sa pagmamataas upang maiwaksi ang lupit at dahas. At samahang lumikha ng pamayanan payapa sa kalikasan, kabuhayan, kakanyahan, paniniwala. Siya nawa, siya nawa.
Very good afternoon to all. Isang mapagpalang hapon po sa ating lahat. My name is Robert Samson. I'm a member of the Focolare, and I work also with the CBCP Episcopal Commission on Ecumenical Affairs. Ophel, the line is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Ophelia Cantor, your co-worker at the Ecumenical Bishops Forum and at the Philippine Ecumenical Peace Platform. We are so grateful for this afternoon's virtual gathering. The Year of Ecumenism, Interreligious Dialogue, and Indigenous Peoples. This is the first time that the different Christian churches come together to celebrate the season of creation with our brothers and sisters in the Roman Catholic Church. Indeed, a great occasion to remember. Perhaps Robert can say something about Pope Francis Laudato Si. Just a brief, Robert.
Okay, Ophel. As Pope Francis was saying, it's a jubilee of the earth. It's a good time to remember creation's original vocation. And what is this? It's to exist as a community of love. We exist only in relationships with God the Creator, with our brothers and sisters, and with all of God's creatures, which means that every single creature is interconnected. Within our common home, we should take into heart how the indigenous peoples regard our mountains, our forests. They treat our mountains and hills as coexistence. Unlike the business, they only treat this as a source of profit.
So, perfect timing because this is the year of ecumenism, interreligious dialogue, and indigenous peoples. So, when people bring life and meaning to this relationship, it is ecumenism, right? That all may be one. That's
Yes,
very
absolutely.
biblical. It is found in John chapter 17, verse 21. So if I may add, ecumenism refers to the movement shared by diverse Christian communities, church traditions, and denominations to nurture unity amidst diversity. So why are we gathered here, Robert?
Yeah, why are we gathered here? We're first of all, beyond just fellowship or being just an ecumenical community, we hope to build this ecumenical family. If not, I think it's already a reality here. So that's the reason why we are gathered here in this one small room called Zoom webinar. And at the end of this webinar, we hope that we can widen our sense of community, go back to our senses. And if by ecumenical community, I would say so that we have different objectives. One could be to deepen the understanding on ecumenism, from different church traditions and perspective. And then we can also strengthen partnership through the launching of ecumenical prayers and liturgies, webinar forums on issues affecting the poor, the marginalized, or the ecumenical dialogue. We need to build it in, especially in conflict areas, to introduce it, or the community integration and solidarity also with our indigenous peoples, and so on and so forth. Ophel, what do you think? Would you like to add?
Maybe I can also add? Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ophel.
Yeah. Maybe I can also add to plan activities for the next months to come in preparation for the 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines. So, walang hiwalayan pagkatapos ng hapong ito. And maybe to present best practices of ecumenical and interfaith collaboration and cooperation from the grassroots, like for instance, issues on anti-mining, genuine reform, anti-human trafficking, the issue of backward school, the issue of forced migration, and so on and so forth. So these are the reasons why we are gathered here. So,
Yeah. So friends, we would like to thank every one of you for coming together. but it's also good to acknowledge some of the bishops who join us here, not often. What do
Yes,
you?
yes.
Yes.
This is real celebration. I saw, of course, Archbishop Lampoon. I saw Bishop Hamtek, Hamwell Tekis of
Magandang hapon.
who is in the list of LCAP. He is red tag at the moment. Of course, our resources speakers, we have them right now. And Bishop Daniel Presto of La Union. I saw Bishop Joel Tendero, and he invited some of our friends from the USA and a lot more. Maybe later on, Robert, we can name those who are here inside the Zoom and also recognize the participation of different organizations from all over the country, because our bishops really mobilize their lay and clergy workers. So as we have mentioned, there are about, according to Jan a while ago and Sister Bing, there are about more than 200 participants who have registered in the Zoom room but unable to come in because of the limitation. But anyway, we have cross-posted how many a while ago, Facebook pages, and it is proper to recognize them in a little while. But we have these three organizations who come to put their efforts together to concretize this afternoon's event. So we have with us the CBCP SAA chairperson. We have with us the General Secretary of the Ecumenical Bishops Forum and the Program Secretary of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines to welcome all of us. Maybe Robert can introduce our welcomers.
Yes. What a fantastic thing. Wow, three people, certain caliber, who would be welcoming us today. So we would like to present, first of all, there's also the chairperson of the CBCP Episcopal Commission on Ecumenical Affairs, none other than Archbishop Angelito Lampon, who's also the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Cotabato. And then second, we will be having Bishop Joel Tendero, who's the General Secretary of the Ecumenical Bishops Forum. And then third, we would like to welcome Dr. Rommel Dinatok, who is from the National Council of Churches Program Secretary of the Christian Unity on Ecumenical Relations. So, Archbishop Lampon, we will be giving now your welcoming address. Archbishop Lampon, for us, is special, friend, father, our big boss. Archbishop Lampon, it's your call now. It's your word. Maybe is he muted? Is Archbishop Lampon muted?
Nakamute siya.
Where is he now?
Nakamute siya.
Yeah, well, Archbishop Lampon, you can unmute yourself. Yes, fantastic. We give you the word, Archbishop Lampon. You muted yourself again. So no, you have to unmute yourself, Archbishop Lampon. Okay. Yes, kindly speak. You're now unmuted.
Yeah. So in a way, I'd like to say thank you to all of you organizers of this, especially the JCC in Pilipinas. A great opportunity for us to be together under the our Trinitarian God, Father, Son, and the Spirit. So I am Archbishop Angelito Lampon of BARM, that is Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, Muslim Mindanao, Cotabato. So to all of you who are connected, I'd like to say thank you for being with us. Actually, I'm the chair of the CBCP Communical Affairs, pero my boss are really Jane and Robert. They do the great job. They just kind of tell me what to do. Anyway, that's my preliminary remark. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on screen and to be with all our people who are concerned with the care of creation from the grassroots. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Archbishop Lampon. So we would like to invite Bishop Joel Tendero.
Good afternoon to everyone who are present today in this virtual forum on ecumenism in the grassroots level and safeguard of our home. It is indeed very challenging to engage people at this time of pandemic and emerging tyranny, even as we are meeting in this platform. I remember very well one of the themes of the NCCP convention was entitled Doctrines Divide, Christ Unites. Indeed, Christ made this activity possible. He is in our midst today to unite us to many concerns around us, not just to hear, but also to respond. In behalf of the Ecumenical Bishops Forum, we welcome you, brothers, sisters, and friends in the Philippines and around the globe who are now meeting with us in this webinar forum. This is our response to the prayer of our Lord Jesus Christ that they may be one. May we experience here together and feel in this gathering the Spirit of the Lord inspiring us to be one in Him and with the Filipino people for a genuine justice, peace, and healing in our land. Again, welcome to all of you. Buhay.
Thank you very much, Bishop Joel. So let's pass it now to Dr. Romel Latos.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat. Ang lahat ng bagay ay magkaugnay, sa kandungang lupa tayo'y magkaakbay. Sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo at sa iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas, tayo ay magkakadugsong. Sa Galatians 3:28 ay sinabi pong there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Isang mapagpalang hapon po sa lahat. May pandemya o walang pandemya, ang pagnanais ng mga simbahan na mag-reach out sa ibang simbahan ay hayag at lantad. Sa panahon ng krisis, ang ugnayan po ng mga simbahan ay may manifestasyon ng pagtutulungan at pagdadamayan. Ang pagtitipon po natin ay may ugnay sa mga nauna ng effort ng Catholic Bishop Conference of the Philippines at ng National Council of Churches in the Philippines at ng Ecumenical Bishops Forum, gayon din ng Philippine Council for Evangelical Churches at ng iba pang kalipunan ng mga mananampalataya. Ang pinagsimula ng Ecumenismo ay sa lente ng pagkakaisa mula sa pagkakaiba-iba, unity in diversity. Mula dito nagkaroon ng iba't ibang hugis at forma ang pagkakaisang Kristiyano. Si Bishop Antonio Ledesma ng CBCP at si Bishop Reuel Norman Marigsa ng NCCP ay instrumento ng dakilang Diyos ng ating pagkakaisa upang ito ay papag-alabin sa ating kalagitnaan. Pagkakaisa upang tayo ay hikayatin na may gumanap pa ng higit na mas malawak pa sa atin ang ginagawang pagkakaisa ngayon. Ang mga panel po ng reactors natin ay may dagdag na mga konkretong datos. Lantad po ang pandemya at hayag na hayag ang panawagan ng mamamayan para sa isang siyentipiko at medical na solusyon, isang holistic at hindi militaristic na solusyon sa pandemya. Ang pagtanggap natin ng lahat ng participants ay kasama rin po, kagaya ng mga naunang nabanggit na, ang hamon na mayroon tayong gagawin. Tayo ay nagtitipon upang may gawin bilang kapahayagan ng ating pagkakaisa. Patuloy ang dahas na nagaganap po sa kanayunan, sa mga kapatid po natin mga katutubo. Patuloy ang pagkaagnas ng kalikasan, ang pagdurusa ng ating kabandukan. At nariyan pa rin po ang banta ng anti-terror bill. anti-terror law at nahinto ang usapang pangkapayapaan na matagal nang pinagtutulungan ng NCCP, CBCP at PCEC. Kaya po sa pagkakataong ito, sa panahon ng pandemya, alam po natin the marginalized communities became more marginalized. Naghahanap ng taong bayan ng malinaw na direksyon, ngunit batid po nating ang balahurang bunganga ang ating naririnig sa regular na mga balita. Sa ganitong kalagayan, lahat tayo ay tinatawag para manindigan at kampihan natin ang Diyos na si Jesucristo upang ating pagkakaisa ay tunay na maging instrumento upang ang langit ay magkaroon ng katotohanan dito sa lupa.
Maraming salamat, Rommel. Floor is yours, Ophel.
Yeah, thank you so much for your beautiful words at kagat to the bones na mga hamon para sa ating lahat. So we continue. Ito na yun. To speak on ecumenism in the grassroots level, safeguarding our home from the perspective of a Roman Catholic, is a former chairperson of the Episcopal Commission on Ecumenical Affairs, a peace builder, peacemaker, now chairperson of the Episcopal Commission on Mutual Relations and co-chairperson of the Philippine Ecumenical Peace Platform. Brothers and sisters, let's all welcome Archbishop Emeritus Antonio J. Ledesma. Bishop, it's your call now.
Yes, my greetings to everyone for this ecumenical webinar. This is Archbishop Tony Ledesma. As often mentioned, I am now Bishop Emeritus. I passed on the shepherd staff to my successor last week, August 28th, and I don't know what emeritus means. It might mean without merit, or also it might mean with some merit. But on the other hand, I continue to join the ecumenical movement, and certainly this is one occasion where we can share our experiences and also our understanding of what is ecumenism. So let me first start with some ecumenical imperatives that came out from a joint statement of both theologians from the Catholic and other Christian churches. In fact, the first statement here is that Catholics and members of other Christian churches should always begin from the perspective of unity. In that sense, not division, in order to strengthen what is already held in common, even though the differences sometimes are more easily seen and experienced. So it is in this sense that certainly when we work for the care of the environment, we are actually showing our unity. Protestants and Catholics and members of other Christian churches must also be transformed by this encounter with the other and by the mutual witness of faith. This means that it is our faith that gives witness to our coming together. And it is in this sense again that action will unite us, whereas sometimes doctrine may divide us. A third imperative for Catholics and also members of other Christian churches is that we should commit ourselves to seek visible unity, to elaborate together what this means in concrete steps, and to strive repeatedly toward this goal. So again, many concrete manifestations of working towards visible unity is one way to strengthen our common aspiration for this unity to take place. Again, we also say that Protestants and members of other Christian churches should jointly rediscover the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ for our time. And it is in this sense again that we say that it is really the gospel message that brings us together and helps us to share the power and the spirit of the gospel for many people in our midst today. So it is in this sense that we can talk about ecology now and care for the environment, that we all first believe that we are stewards of God's gift to all generations. In fact, the first principle that we can keep in mind is that the environment itself is God's gift to everyone. The environment is a gift that we share with everyone. And it is in this sense that we even say that the first book of Revelation is the book of nature itself. The design of God is all over creation. Nature is usually seen as a system which can be studied, understood, and controlled, whereas creation can only be understood as a gift from the outstretched hand of the Father of all. This is one statement from Pope Francis in his encyclical Laudato Si. I think it is important for us to see this difference in perspectives. Scientists will look on nature as something to be studied and objectified and perhaps even thrown away. But on the other hand, when we see the environment as a creation, it can only mean that it is a gift from the outstretched hand of the Father. It is a gift that should be taken care of and conserved. The environment is a collective good destined for all. Again, this is from the compendium of the social doctrine of the church. And we are reminded that all beings are interconnected in the cosmos, and that there is value of biodiversity and of forests in our midst. And this is part of the collective good, a good for all of us, not only for a few individuals, not only for a few corporations, but indeed for all communities living on the environment. The natural environment is a collective good. Again, this is you might say an echo of what Laudato Si tells us. The natural environment is a collective good, the patrimony of all humanity, and the responsibility of all of us. In fact, this includes not only Christians, but also people of other faith. In one forum that we had with a Muslim speaker, he was very eloquent in citing citations from the Quran, also about how Muslims should be mindful of the environment. And certainly for Buddhists, Buddhists have a high respect for all forms of life. And in that sense, they are perhaps much closer to the spirit of the environment, an environment that lives, an environment that we say today, there are rights of nature itself, not only the rights of human beings, but the rights of nature to exist and to continue to be the welfare of all of us. A third principle about ecology is human beings, all of us, exercise a responsible stewardship over nature. We are seen as stewards, caretakers of the environment. Efficiency for us should not be value-free. There are certain values that also overcome just the principle of efficiency. And we are asked to use, not abuse, the natural resources around us. We have already experienced many calamities, from Ormoc, Infanta, Marikina about 8 years, 10 years ago. More recently, in Cagayan de Oro, we experienced the ravages of Typhoon Sendo. A year later, was also Typhoon Yolanda, and also more recent Typhoon Vinta, and so on. So calamities, natural calamities, are part of what we are experiencing today, perhaps also a manifestation of the protest from the environment itself in our abuse of nature. So we are asked precisely to help in the protection now of watershed and river basin areas. Again, here in Cagayan de Oro, with the other government agencies and civil society groups, including churches, we have formed a Cagayan de Oro River Basin Management Council. And the focus of this council is to look at the watershed protection of the water basin area of Cagayan de Oro River. This river basin area really extends to the northern part of Bukidnon, the highland area from which all the waters flow down through the Cagayan de Oro River. A fourth principle is that our projects for integral human development need to be marked by solidarity and intergenerational justice. This means solidarity means unity, oneness in spirit and purpose. Intergenerational justice means that the world we inherit today is also the same world that we pass on to the next generation. In fact, again, from Laudato Si, the statement is made, intergenerational solidarity is not optional, but rather a basic question of justice, since the world we have received also belongs to those who will follow us. One important contribution, I think, of the Philippines is the landmark decision of our Supreme Court about 10 years ago, recognizing the rights of children as the next generation to partake of the fruits of the environment, and that we, the present generation, have no right to misuse the environment that is also meant for future generations. So it is in that sense that maybe as we go to the grassroots level, let me just share with you some experiences we have recently undertaken here in Cagayan de Oro. Last August 11th, we had this tree planting program by our clergy in one area in Claveria, one of the municipalities of Misamis Oriental. And it was a joyous occasion where not only the Catholic clergy, but also the barrio people in Lanice, Claveria, including people of other faiths, joined us in this tree planting program. In fact, the municipal mayor herself was there to show her support for tree planting as a way of protecting the whole area of Claveria and also Misamis Oriental. So this is one of the seedlings that were also contributed by several groups, including Dole Foundation, which is part of their corporate social responsibility. And they provided seedlings for Nara and also other kinds of trees that are meant to be part of the protection of the environment. Here is one example of providing putting the seedling on the ground. But before that, we made sure actually that there was already organic or natural fertilizer placed on the spot where the seedlings were to be planted. And now we have also caretakers to make sure that there is enough watering to be done on these seedlings. In fact, in all 2 days of tree planting, we have, I think, put in place more than 1,000 seedlings on this 1 or 2 hectares of area. Another activity recently that was held on September 1, the beginning of the season of creation, we also had this cosmic creation walk right along the riverbanks of Cagayan de Oro. On the right side, you can see our new Archbishop of Cagayan de Oro, Archbishop Jose Cabantan, who came from the being Bishop of Malaybalay, and now as the Archbishop of Cagayan de Oro, also joining this cosmic walk. Again, reminding us of the sacredness of the river, of the riverbank and how the water that flows down the river from the mountain, from the ridge to the river to the reefs is part of the web of life that the environment affords to us. This is part of the cosmic walk, and they follow the 14 stations of the environment. And this is part of the station, which was really in front of St. Joseph's Garden by the Cathedral of San Agustin Cathedral in Cagayan de Oro. And this was part of the final blessing by Archbishop Jose Cabantan during this early morning walk. It started at 5 o'clock in the morning and ended with a mass afterwards by 6:30 in the morning. And this is a part of the group that took place, participated in the program. Again, all groups were invited, not only Catholics, but people of other faiths, young and old, to celebrate and to start off the season of creation. In fact, the ending of the season is scheduled to be on October 4th, the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi. For us in Cagayan de Oro, we have extended it to end by October 7th, the feast day of Our Lady of the Rosary. But in other words, the whole month of September and the early part of October is really meant to remind us of this season of creation. So it is in that sense, my friends, that as we again remember the principles of ecumenism, the imperatives of unity, of striving for visible signs of unity, of working together in witnessing to our faith, and also reminding ourselves of some principles of the environment, that it is God's gift to all of us as part of creation, that we are only stewards in a collective sense of taking care of this creation, and that our own focus is integral human development for all. In fact, let me just try to summarize briefly also what the World Day of Prayer for the Care of the Creation was by Pope Francis, issued on September 1 of this month. There are several R's that he says. The season of creation, care for creation, is a time to remember that we are all creatures of creation ourselves, that we are all caught in the web of life in creation. It is also a time to return to this jubilee of creation. The jubilee season calls us to think once again of our fellow human beings, and that the cry of the earth is also combined with the cry of the poor, and that as we care for creation, we also care especially for those that have been marginalized by the misuse of nature. And this is particularly experienced in what happened in the overflowing of the river in Cagayan de Oro, Typhoon Sendo. It was people on the margins already of society. Their homes were washed away by the flood waters. The season of creation, for again this letter of Pope Francis, is also a time to rest. It is a reminder of the meaning of the Sabbath. And in fact, he says the current pandemic has led us to rediscover simpler and sustainable lifestyles. The crisis, in a sense, has given us a chance to develop new ways of living. Already we can see how the earth can recover if we allow it to rest. The air becomes cleaner, the waters clearer, and animals have returned to many places from where they had previously disappeared. So in one sense, this is one beneficial effect of the quarantine period and the pandemic. It has indeed brought us to a crossroads. We must use this decisive moment to end, according to this letter, our superfluous and destructive goals and activities, and to cultivate values, connections, and activities that are life-giving. A fourth reminder of the letter is it is a time to restore. We have to restore what has already been broken and fragmented, what has been abused, especially in nature, and to restore the pristine beauty and the pristine obligations of taking care of nature for our own good. And finally, the season of creation should be also a time to rejoice, to thank the Lord for the gift of life, the gift of creation, and how together we of all Christian traditions can work together to care for our common home. So it is with this, my friends, that we continue to reflect on the meaning of creation and how we together in our ecumenical movement can help each other in promoting the good of each one in our community. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Archbishop Tony, for the inspiring thought that you just gave us. Now for our second resource speaker, he is a former youth commissioner of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines, also a former general secretary of United Church of Christ in the Philippines. He is an ecumenical church leader on international and national level. Friends, we have to speak about the perspective of a Protestant church leader on ecumenism in grassroots level and safeguarding our common homes. So let us welcome Bishop Ruel Norman Marigsa. Just unmute yourself, Bishop.
Yes. Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Just 2 days ago, I gave a talk on ecumenism to young people, and I was thinking of using the same material, though broaden it a bit. But eventually, I decided not to. But although I will be picking from some of the items I mentioned there, especially on the area of ecumenical movement. One Anglican bishop in Ireland, Bishop Kenneth Caron, says ecumenism is not about the church, it's about the world. And he says that we have a life-transforming message, and yet we're not that confident about promoting that message in public in our modern society. Noting particularly the increasing push to privatize faith as an individual choice that should not be part of public discourse. And he pointed out the fact that Pope Francis has captured the world's attention by continually stressing that the gospel message of Jesus Christ is not about the church, but rather about the world. So that when he washes people's feet, for instance, he doesn't go into a fancy church, but he goes into a prison. It's about the world. It's not about the church. The modern ecumenical movement rose from a desire to address what was being called then as the scandal of the divided church. This is particularly true to Protestants who had, especially in the area of missions, have gone into places around the world preaching the gospel, yet people are asking, you are saying you belong to one faith. You believe in one Lord. You have one baptism. You have one hope, one Father of all. Yet you would not see eye to eye. So how can we believe you? And so from out of that encounter with people in the grassroots, missionaries began to take a look at themselves and eventually would move towards the early 1900s towards the World Mission Conference that would eventually start the International Mission Conference, one of the precursor organizations of the World Council of Churches that was formed in 1948. Two other streams would help cement the ecumenical movement from the Protestant side, and that was the what is called the Life and Works Commission, as well as yung Faith and Order. Of course, Faith and Order dealt with doctrines, and the Life and Work was doing the service and the diaconal work. But as is one slogan in the ecumenical movement would put it, doctrines divide, but service unites. And since there's a lot of things that we grapple theologically, there is much, much more that ties us together when we work together. And so those were the stream. Another stream that went into it was coming from the youth and student movements, especially represented by the World Student Christian Federation, the YMCA, and the YWCA, which also raised the concern about this scandal of the divided church. And they were ashamed of the churches. And so they said, but it's a shame that was described as active shame, meaning they said, we must do something about it. We must do something to change the situation. And so from those streams began to form the modern ecumenical movement. Of course, those found their own manifestations in different levels, so that we could say that there have been different stages of the ecumenical movement, at least from the Protestant side. It began earlier on with interdenominational cooperation, which was, in the branches of Protestantism, they worked together, Presbyterians, Baptists, and so on would come together. And then it went into what is called the intercommunion level, where those in similar branches would come together and work together with those of other branches, like Protestants would now work with Orthodox, or Protestants with Roman Catholics, and so on. And then it went on to interfaith, where we went beyond the Christian community to work with others, like the Muslims, the Buddhists, and so on and so forth. But eventually, it even went beyond that, from the religious to those who are in need, those who are poor. And here, ecumenism was understood as solidarity. For instance, in the UCCP, where I led for 8 years, before we had this statement that said that the UCCP is open to the spirit of ecumenism, which goes beyond the traditional denominational lines to the new and progressive sectoral groupings. This new ecumenism has come out of the church ministry in identity and solidarity with people's struggles for justice, peace, and freedom. Its main objective is the restoration of the individual to full humanhood and the transformation of church to usher in the kingdom of God. And because of this, the work that has been bannered by the ecumenical movement has been revolving around what has been called the JPIC process, justice, peace, and integrity of creation. So that from a concern of on issues of peace and human rights, people began to realize that we also need to protect the rights of creation. Initially, the idea of being stewards of creation has been one of the themes of the ecumenical movement. But this has now been shown to be very inadequate. In the first place, it centers on the human being, no? Anthropomorphic. Tayo pa rin yung bida. Yun yung view of Psalm 8, for instance, no? That we are the crown of creation and that we take care of creation. Now, the understanding has broadened, nabanggit na ni Archbishop kanina, na we now are part of the web of life. We talk about the interwovenness of life. And the thinking is that if we really come to realize it, nature can survive without us, but we cannot survive without nature. There is, while there is supposed to be a symbiotic relationship between creation and humanity, of which we are actually part of that wider creation, no? But yun nga, nakakasurvive ang nature. Tayo, nawala tayo. Pero kung tayo ang nature ang mawala, wala na tayo. No, we could not survive. So this is part of yung concern on the justice, peace, and integrity of creation process that has been adopted. Locally, here in the Philippines, yung grassroots ecumenism was pushed as early as the 60s, even as Vatican II was going on, no? As early, for instance, as 1966, the National Council of Churches has acted to look with deep sympathy towards the formation and development of local councils of churches, recognizing their autonomy in planning and implementing their own programs designed to meet local problems and situation. And in 1981, the NCCP convention made an action to initiate the creation of local NCCP committees so that ecumenical relations will be felt in the grassroots. And it's followed up in 1983 when it acted to organize NCCP in regional and provincial levels as a way of leadership sharing, including sharing the program responsibilities in the national, local, regional, and local levels. And so at that point, we began to organize what were called the regional ecumenical councils. And in many situations, those even have been broadened to reach out to non-NCCP member churches. For instance, here in Baguio, where I am now, we have a very active group called the Baguio Benguet Ecumenical Group. And we have worked together, both Protestants and Catholics, even among our evangelical brothers and sisters, and the charismatic movements, to work out on issues that beface our country, our city, no? Like anti-gambling. Ito very strong si Bishop, the late Bishop Senson here. And now, of course, we are together with Bishop Bendico of the Catholic Church Diocese here in Baguio. And these are multiplied all over. And if you see the situation in the countryside, where, for instance, big mining corporations have tried to ravage the land. This could be seen in the experience in Region 2, like in places like Quirino, where again, a broad ecumenical movement as well as of people's organizations have come together to stand for the rights of the earth and for the integrity of creation. These are multiplied all over, and in many instances, like for instance, in this pandemic, we have heard testimonies of joint work together for instance, of Catholics bringing their goods to the among the Protestants in Central Luzon, and I think we will hear a testimony of that later. I also know, for instance, that in Payatas area, again, a Roman Catholic parish brought their goods to one evangelical group there. And this cooperation has cemented the ties. The Roman, I will end with this. The Roman Catholic came out with what they call the 4 levels of inter-religious dialogue. And it would probably be a good way of ending my presentation, where they said that there are 4 levels, no? The dialogue of life, dialogue of action, dialogue of theological exchange, and dialogue of religious experience. And at various junctures in our common history as a people and as a church, we have shown this as part of the witness of the Philippine church, that we have moved beyond simply just working among ourselves in theological exchange or in religious experience, and went beyond that for a dialogue of life and a dialogue of action. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Bishop Maritza. Now to my partner, Ophel.
Yes, thank you very much, Archbishop Ledesma and Bishop Marigsa. That was a very enriching wisdom na pwede namin take to heart. We hope that it will register into our hearts and into our memory. Wag lang sa brain. And for those who also are watching or viewing over Facebook page, you can also raise questions. Just write on your questions to FB pages, and also in the chat box here, you can also write your questions. Let us hear the latest updates on the number of participants that are in the Zoom room. We have 100, and over FB live stream, Facebook live stream, according to the latest 10 minutes ago, there were about 153. There are 2 things that Archbishop Ledesma and Bishop Marigsa were saying a while ago. For Bishop Marigsa, that's about we have to advocate justice and peace for our environment, as well as for our kapwa Filipino. And for Archbishop Ledesma, very clear ang sinasabi niya sa akin. Bottom line is we have to be caretakers, good stewards of our environment. Anyway, we have more inputs from our panel of reactors. You know, their thoughts and sharing for sure will even more be helpful for understanding and appreciating what is ecumenism all about. So let's, Robert, can you please introduce them, please?
Well, panel of actors, we have with us a well-known theologian, writer, a teacher, a seminary professor, also a guidance counselor for the widows whose husbands were victims of war against drugs. Almost every day since the lockdown, you will see him along with young seminarians giving food and aid to the needy. So we have for our one of the first panel reactor, Reverend Father Danny Pilario. And then the second panel of reactors is also the Executive Director of Justice and Peace and Reconciliation Commission of the Philippine Council of Evangelical Churches. He's a mentor, a peacemaker, most of all a pastor. Friends, we have with us also Dr. Aldrin Peñamora. But last but not the least, we have with us an ordained minister of the United Church of Christ in the Philippines and a faculty member of the Union of Theological Seminary. So we have with us the Reverend Luisito Salienra. Let us now listen to their reaction. So we would like to invite Father Danny Pilario. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Robert. I'm not sure if my sound, my mic is clear because it's raining hard here and thunder is all over. So baka maingay tayo.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Thank you for your kind introduction. You're right. I'm a professor of theology and philosophy from Monday to Friday. But on Saturdays and Sundays, I am assistant minister in Payatas Parish since 20 years ago. So more or less, I have known the story of Payatas for quite some time now. I'm going to give 3 experiences of ecumenical practices in the grassroots and 3 takeaways in the end. First, since the lockdown, as well as said by Robert, we had a relief operation in Payatas. We were afraid that Payatas will go hungry because people have no work. So we thought of how can we best help the people. So it's a relief operation, giving rice to every family, milk sometimes, vegetables, whatever we can get, we distribute to the people. And one experience which I will never forget, because we meet every Sunday together with the leaders of the parish, mostly mothers or leaders of the BECs. And on Sundays, even on a lockdown, we were given permission by the barangay captain to meet like 50 of us. When the church can only admit 5, the barangay captain said, you can go and meet with 50 because that is essential. So we had that permission. But one of the experiences is very striking in this conference. Goes like this. Mothers were distributing pandesal every day to different families all over the parish for free. And then the pandesal goes to one family, and this family who belongs to Iglesia ni Cristo refused. And she said, I'm sorry, I could not accept it because I belong to Iglesia ni Cristo, I am not Catholic. And you know, I was struck by the response of the leader. He said, alam po ninyo ate, wala pong relihiyon ang kumakalam nating sikmura. I don't know for those who do not speak Tagalog here. Our hungry stomachs does not recognize any religion. And from then onwards, from that time, that was always the spirit of the relief operation. According to Bishop Ruel earlier, it's true, in Payatas, we have around 300 evangelical and born-again churches. In fact, we don't have big mainline churches like UCCP. I don't know where they are in Payatas, but there is no. All of them are 300 evangelical churches and a Catholic church. In relief operations like this, the Catholics, this is the tendency and the temptation of majority churches, we just go on our own. Whatever happens, we have the resources, we go on our own. But this time, we were very sensitive to the small churches, to the evangelical churches around us. And when we visited some pastors who has like 20 or 30 constituents, they really also have nothing. Even the pastors do not have anything. So what we tried to do is to gather resources so that we can also give to the pastors. And here is what happened. Some pastors organized themselves and told us, we will take care of one area of the parish. We will do the relief operations here. We will coordinate with you. So every meeting, this pastor or pastors come with us in the meetings for the relief distribution. This movements are called Payatas Evangelical Movement, Samaritana Transformational Ministries, and all these actually, in one way or the other, strengthened the ecumenical movement during the time of the pandemic. But this did not start this time. In fact, we were collaborating with the pastors in the time of the EGK. Payatas is badly hit by the extrajudicial killings. We have more than 100 who were killed in Payatas, and we were collaborating with the pastors, with some pastors during this time, because the victims do not recognize religion. The victims are Catholics, evangelicals, Iglesia ni Cristo, etc. There is a little bit of difficulty because during that time, some evangelical churches are also supporters of extrajudicial killings. So it's a little bit difficult who are supporters or who are non-supporters. But the like-minded pastors gathered with us. So we reached out to them, looking for pastors who can talk with us to support the widows. They also reached out to us. And one significant movement is Chief Justice Sereno. She went to the parish and said, Father, can we collaborate together with these pastors? So we already know these pastors before the pandemic. From the EGK down to the pandemic, the ecumenical movement already started in Payatas. Now, what are my takeaways? Because I only have few minutes. I have 3 takeaways. Number 1, religions do not divide. In fact, religious affiliations is not an issue at the grassroots level. The members of the extrajudicial killing group, which we call Solidarity with Orphans and Widows, belong to all kinds of religions. May Iglesia ni Cristo, may born again, wala nga lang Muslim doon, pero may lahat, may mga Katoliko. And when they come together as victims, they don't talk about religion. We use the Bible, people come to Mass, it doesn't really matter if they are Iglesia ni Cristo or not. One time we had a retreat, and of course in a retreat, in a Catholic retreat, there is confession. And one Iglesia ni Cristo came to me in confession and she said, Father, I'm Iglesia ni Cristo. I do not know how to confess. You teach me, but I want to talk to you. So, or religions do not actually divide. In fact, moreover, religion becomes the needed motivation for compassion. That's my takeaway. Government resources and government services could not do anything. There's nothing going on except for the ayuda, which does not come really as human. But religion, the mothers who distribute pandesal or rice every day said, I am here because Jesus told me to feed the hungry. That motivation comes from religion. Without religion, whatever religion is, compassion is difficult in this time. Second, Bishop Ruel mentioned about the different kinds of interreligious dialogue. Dialogue of action, dialogue of life, dialogue of religious experience. And during this time, what comes to mind, what comes as a very, very strong indication of ecumenical efforts is actually dialogue of action. People do not talk about religion, they just act because people are hungry. That's the point. But you know what? I'm thinking, even on the grassroots, people actually dialogue on their theological beliefs. That mother who said, yung kumakalam na sikmura ay hindi kumikilala ng relihiyon is a deep theological statement. And these theologies are not only happening in the level of theologians, professional theologians, in ecumenical efforts, but on the ground. Lastly, my third takeaway is on the care for our common home. As you know, Payatas is the most ecologically distressful place in the whole of Manila. All our garbage goes to Payatas for years on end, 25 to 30 years now. And recently, 2 years ago, they closed the dump site of Payatas. We have been praying that they will close it because it's creating havoc. But now, we have another problem. People do not have work. Who lived on the garbage do not have work. Saan yung pag-asa rito? And you know what? The mothers who are distributing pandesal are now taking care of urban gardening. All over Payatas, in 10 to 15 areas, have their communal urban gardens. Of course, and now they have already experienced their first harvest. And they said, hindi naman pala kailangan bumili sa palengke, Father. Pwede na palang magtanim. Of course, this is spearheaded by the Catholic BECs. And our next move is again to reach out to other brothers and sisters and said, let's join to produce food for ourselves. Magandang hapon at maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much. Do we have now Dr. Aldrin Peñamora?
Hello, Brother Robert.
Yes.
Okay. Maraming salamat for also that introduction. I can go on no, Brother Robert?
Yes, please.
Okay, at muli, thank you for the invitation. It's good to see everybody. Many of you are good friends. Father Danny, maraming salamat din sa iyong napaka-rich na sharing. Ganun din kay Bishop Ruel at kay ating kaibigan si Archbishop Tony. Siguro, salamat din, Father Danny, dahil nabanggit mo na yung inyong napakagandang the good things that you're doing with evangelicals in Payatas. And I would like to take up the idea of pakikipagkapwa that Bishop Roel mentioned in his talk. Because PCEC and the commission that I'm heading, Justice, Peace, and Reconciliation Commission, we actually have different tables in that commission, a table dealing with the peace process, with NDFP, with the Bangsamoro, with environment. Right now, we're cooperating with Catholics and Church of the Latter-day Saints on LGBT rights issues. So these are issues that we're currently involved in. Also, we'd like to emulate what Father Danny Pilario is doing with the EJK advocacy, yung the families and the widows. For us evangelicals, it is very crucial that we follow, that we are sort of following or emulating the character of God, because we know that, because we're talking about ecumenism and interfaith dialogues, the idea of community, as we know in the scripture, is based on that idea of ecclesia, or maybe in the Hebrew it's kahal, in the Old Testament notion, wherein God covenanted with his people. And it is a covenant that seeks to make his people, sympathetic toward others, just as God became sympathetic toward them. So this is the character of God that we are reflecting on as evangelicals, and we're trying to emulate, trying to put into action in our different advocacies. And as also with what Archbishop Tony shared regarding the rights of creation, one of our commissions at PCEC, the Christian Convergence for Good Governance, is very active also in giving educating our pastors in different parts of the country regarding the rights of creation. And as I mentioned, yung idea of kapwa should really come into play, because there's a tradition in evangelical Protestant perspective that we are dominus or lord over creation, that we're not part of creation, but actually, as Bishop Ruel also said, we are part of it. We are interconnected in the symbiotic relationship. And it's actually, yung idea of kapwa should be extended to creation also. Kumbaga, creation is our kapwa also. It's a kapwa nila lang. Kaya lang, oftentimes we tend to look at creation as something that does not respond. Para bang mute. Creation is mute, blind, as if it doesn't have any feeling. Pero we know that creation, it groans for the revealing of the sons of God, sabi nga sa Romans 8, ano? So that may groaning na sinasabi doon, as if may anthropomorphic quality na pinapakita. So for yung mga advocacies, the advocacies that we're doing is actually centered really on our trying to unpack the meaning of pakikipagkapwa. God became our kapwa, and how do we become kapwa to others? Because we know that we cannot know the character of God in his entirety. We can only know him through his revelation. And we know that the revelation that he showed us through Jesus Christ is someone who is the ultimate kapwa. Sabi nga ni Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he is the man for others, that he exists for others, so that the church should be like that. Ontological yun. Actually, it's not a existential perspective, but for Bonhoeffer, it's ontologically, Jesus Christ exists for others. So I think this is a very, that notion that we should be for others, that we should exist for our kapwa, not for ourselves, is a very crucial understanding of our mission as a church. And yung ating ding bonding as an ecumenical group, ano po. And I have been with Archbishop Tony in several initiatives for Bangsamoro brothers and sisters. And it's of course, it's outside of our Christian faith, but we still see our Bangsamoro brothers and sisters as our kapwa. It doesn't stop from, with having similar faith traditions. So that actually we have a project in Lanao del Sur in Kauswagan. After the Marawi siege, so many Muslims had to leave their homes. So many of them dispersed in different areas in Mindanao. And what we evangelicals did in partnership with other organizations is that we built houses for the Muslims. This is not for Christians. These are for Muslims, around 100 families. So that one house actually were parang several thousands. I just don't know the exact price, but it's a good house. It's livable. So that the refugees, the IDPs from Marawi, are now living in Kauswagan under Sultan Munir. So, well, I like to sort of close in that sense of, I read this article by Lanaria, I think his name is Levi, on Salo-Salo as Eucharist. And it's a very good example, his articulation of Salo-Salo as an indigenous, as a Filipino concept of sharing, wherein bakit daw we Filipinos love to eat together with each other. It's not simply that we love food. We love that too. But aside from loving food, we love to share and open ourselves while we are in that meal, in that context of sharing meals together. It's a symbol of us wanting to share ourselves with each other. So dialogue is, there's an economic aspect in, in that kind of eating, the food being prepared. But what's important is that as we learn to reflect on the Christ as ultimate kapwa, in our pagsasalo-salo, we hope and we pray that we can know each other more, we can learn from each other more, and salo-salo is a celebration. I hope that our meeting together is also a celebration of each other, despite our differences, but we know mas malalim doon is our commonality, that we are a kapwa of God and each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Peñamora. So can we ask the Reverend Luisito Saliendra to be the next reactor?
Salamat po at magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Sa inyong salamat sa panyaya na maging bahagi ng ating talakayang ito. So halos naman yung buong esensya ng mga tinalakay ay napakayaman. At I do agree with most of our speakers, all of our speakers actually. So I'll just give some of my idea and our experience here in UTS. Ano yung mga ginagawa namin sa kaugnay sa Ecumenism. So let me start with a little word of this. The 20th century is the age of modern ecumenical movement. So it is during this period when we witness the churches coming together and talk about church unity. So it's a problem of church division and the realization of working towards the realization of Jesus' prayer. So ecumenical endeavors have achieved much in the centuries and that somehow changes the trajectory of churches. So I would say this is my conviction that ecumenism is the answer to the question of how to be a church today. So how to be a church today? So ecumenism is a new form of being a church today. So, but the growing understanding of ecumenism, of which Bishop Marisa told us, shared to us how the concept of ecumenism developed through time. So, and together with the active participation of the ladies in church ministries, but more so of the intensifying people's struggle for life and dignity, leads us to a new realization about ecumenism. So to me, ecumenism, to be real and authentic, must not limit itself in the institutional church, where church leaders talk about church unity. So real ecumenism, if we are referring to the essential meaning of the word, the whole inhabited world, so involves people in the grassroots whose struggle for life is real, whose survival is dependent on the natural world, and whose lifeline is the immediate community where they belong. So central to this concept of ecumenism is the promotion of life, ensuring the survival of peoples and communities, and the protection of environment, just as Bishop Ledesma emphasized earlier. But I have I want to emphasize this one. Who are the principal actors of the grassroots ecumenism? So I would say the principal actors are the people themselves, and the means to achieve their end is in accordance with the people's right to self-determination. So it was mentioned earlier by Bishop Marisa. So the church is, ecumenism is not the church, it's about the world. So amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, especially during the strictest lockdown, we learned one important lesson that is very much related to ecumenism, I would say. So this is about the returning and strengthening the basics for the people to survive and thrive. These basics are the basics of life, and the basics of life are food, health, and a place to stay. Food is the basis of survival. Health is how the people maintain their bodies, and place to stay is where the people feel safe. Producing and acquiring those is the basis of humanity and the purpose of freedom and creativity. The second basic is the basic communities, household, neighborhood, or people's organization, and local faith congregations. Despite the failure of the central government, the people are the people strive and able to survive through household, families, through the neighborhoods, or people's organization, Kusinang Bayan, and the local faith communities that sustain their being. So these communities serve as the principal agencies of life, the transmitter of grace, I would say, and the locus of meaningful experience, especially during crisis. The third basic is the basic social tool, which is communication. So despite the availability of communication technology, no meaningful communication took place to strengthen social cohesion and to harness social energy. Instead, communication technology was used to fool, confuse, and harass the people by state agents. Meaningful communication means communicating knowledge and truth. Knowledge equips, truth unites. So the sum is people empowerment. So this is a call or invitation for us, I would say that the lessons that we can get from how do we do grassroots evangelism or grassroots ecumenism. So where's the place of the church, in other words? So it is in this context that religious people must position themselves to advance the grassroots ecumenism, which is the primary means to safeguard our homes. Grassroots ecumenism is the primary means to safeguard our homes, where people can achieve unity. So grassroots ecumenism must contribute to the strengthening of these three basics, the three basics that I mentioned. So the basics of life, the basic communities, and the basic social tool. This means the church or the church people providing the venue where the people and communities can forge and strengthen unity, thereby empowering themselves to access the means of survival and within their homes. Grassroots ecumenism means churches serve as resource centers where basic masses can find assistance and support. Well, ito yung binahagi kanina ng ating mga tagapagsalita sa karanasan sa Payatas. So the church can serve as the resource centers. In our preaching and evangelization, whether in pulpit or in streets or in through the internet, so must help the people to better understand the realities and the truth of their existence. So, that's how I look at, I understand grassroots ecumenism. So, the principal actors, the conscious element in the preservation of life is the people, the masses. The whole of the church is to facilitate, to forge a venue for strengthen their unity, a resource centers, and our communicating the truth. How do we do that in UPS? We in UPS, we have a partner community, which is the Lupang Ramos. Lupang Ramos is basically a Roman Catholic community. But our seminarians are taking turns in handling their Sunday activities. And we are struggling, how do we do the rituals? As I agree with Father Pilati that people don't care about how we do rituals. They just gather and talk about life, talk about the Bible in the way they do it. The seminarians, our seminarians, just facilitates the talk. let the people understand their struggle in the light of how they read the Bible themselves. So, in a way, the seminarians are instruments of forging the unity of the community. The community is fighting for the land, the agricultural land, being grabbed by the several parties are trying to occupy the land, but the people are fighting for their rights for the land. So somehow, part of our ecumenical task there is facilitate the unity of the community so that they can sustain their struggle for their right to till the land. So that's how we do some of our ecumenical work here, which I would consider as the grassroots ecumenism, where the main actors are the people themselves, and the church facilitates their unity and for them to continue their struggle. So yun po. And as I said, salamat din sa maraming mga kakanasan at ngayon yung mga kaalamang aking natutunan mula sa ating tagapagsalita. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much, Reverend Salienda, for your. So now we would like to ask our technical staff to send on air the teaser that we have for September 15 webinar. Thank you very much. So now for our open forum, we have several questions here written in the chat box. The first one would be, how do interfaith and ecumenical movements play a role in influencing world powers? And then the other one would be from Rommel Marcelino, how can peace and environmental justice be possible in the midst of pandemic? So we go to the first. How do interfaith ecumenical movements play a role in influencing this world today? So anyone would like to take the floor is open.
Yes, may I speak out, Robert?
Yes, Archbishop Tony.
Well, over the past years, the conference of what they call COP20, COP21, the meeting of national leaders from all over the world, has been really focused on the reversing the climate change prospects. And I think this is where the united voice of churches can also play a role. In fact, we are told that pastoral letters like that of Laudato Si have had an impact on the moral consciousness of world leaders. So the more we can come together and unite our voices for climate change protection and also for reversing what has already been destructive in our environment, the more I think we can expect some changes also.
Okay, thank you, Archbishop. The other question is that in this time of pandemic, how can we concretely care for the creation together? Anyone would like to take this question? In this time of pandemic, how can we concretely care for the creation together?
Siguro let me take that, no. Not only in this present topic of care of creation, but in many other issues, the social media platforms have been continuing on to raise issues and concern. Kaya nga meron ng bagong salita ngayon na nasabi ko sa aking mga staff sa NCCP, kayo ang assume sa sanlibutan. Kasi panay zoom na ngayon yung gamit. At patuloy tayong nag-witness, doing our prophetic witness and ministry even in these times. And alam nyo naman, maraming in fact, after this, meron pa akong isa mamayang alas 7 na online forum. But also in the way in which we have moved around during this pandemic. Dito for instance sa amin, at I'm sure marami din kasi marami akong nakikitang napopost sa mga social media platform, yung pagtatanim sa mga tawag nito sa ating mga backyards, yung urban gardening, yung mga ganyan. These are new phenomenon that we are doing, and so it helps. Of course, during the period of the ECQ, when carbon footprint was really lessened, sabi nga doon sa Manila, nagwala yung smog, and you could see the far mountains, ganyan, no? So maybe it's time for us to also continue to reflect, no, on how we are living out our lives pre COVID-19, and now that it is really imposed on us because of the pandemic, that maybe we should re-examine the values that we have vis-a-vis our care for Mother Earth and the rest of creation.
Yeah, thank you, Bishop Pariksa. Now, here's a question I think Dr. Aldrin spoke about is how can Salo-Salo be concretized in ecumenical community in this time of pandemic brought about by COVID-19? So would you like to take that, the Salo-Salo, Dr. Aldrin?
Thank you, Brother Robert, and for the person who asked the question, very interesting because I think like what we're having right now, sabi nga ni Bishop Ruel, yung Zoom, ano ba yung Zoom na that we're always in the Zoom room. I think this is at this point a manifestation of a Salo-Salo where we could get together and then being able to open up with one another, because a crucial element of that Salo-Salo is the giving of space. I think also Bishop Tudtud mentioned that in one of his writings, that we give space to each other as we gather. It's not to dominate one another in terms of our theological or other perspectives, but in this kind of Salo-Salo, like what we're doing now, we are opening up ourselves so that we could learn from each other and get enriched, knowing that the other persons have something to say that are meaningful, just as meaningful as what ourselves are thinking about. Yung bang lahat tayo may share. So it's also this what we're doing right now. I think the Zoom webinars, it's really good because it reaches so many people. Parang Salo-Salo in the Zoom room.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Aldrin. Yes.
Dagdag ito, okay lang ba?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, may mga kusinang bayan na ginawa ang mga communities. The kusinang bayan, it's not necessarily that they have to gather in a place, but they simply means sharing everything they have at the moment, whatever is available. So that one concrete, that's why I mentioned earlier, the neighborhoods help survive each other. That's the salo-salo, where salo-salo can happen, the neighborhoods, the interfamilies, etc. Not necessarily coming face to face, but sharing everything. Just like the Papa was saying, there is space, there are things that can be shared in every possible way we can.
Thank you, Rev. Leandra. I think salo-salo is possible everywhere. No? Even in Mindanao, in the Archdiocese of Cotabato, where Archbishop Lamponi is, he meets with the BARM, and it's a group of different religions. I don't know. Archbishop Lito, would you like to share something? How do you do this salo-salo even in this time of pandemic in your Archdiocese there in Cotabato? You have to unmute yourself, please, if you would like to share something. Yes.
Go now, Robert.
Yes, okay.
Well, first, for the salo-salo, Robert McLuhan said that the medium is the message. So thank you for the very good input from our speakers as well as from the reactors. But the fact that we come together, more than 200 of us, um, facing each other like this, but through our Zoom, this is already a big salo-salo. You know, sharing ideas and present to one another with one common concern, and that is trying to come up with sharing our experiences, trying to preserve creation from the grassroots. So that isa yan sa mga examples ng salo-salo, but that we are now the message. We're coming together. We say, we share, we salo-salo in this concern. Well, sa amin dito, because of the lockdown, yesterday, Saturday and Sunday, for example, no movement dito sa amin. And then last 2 weeks already, and maybe succeeding following weekends, we're not allowed to move around from 3 o'clock Saturday, whole day of Sunday. Previous to that, I had to transfer the Sunday liturgies to liturgical celebrations to Saturday. Because we have in the past it was only Sunday that no movement. But anyway, salo-salo, our own parishes, they would come together, just a few people like that, and common dito sa amin banda yung natawag natin bartering, meaning to say, I have my beautiful flower, I show it to you, ganyan. And then you have something there that, you know, we agree together. We will barter, and like that. Manok mo, dalawang manok mo, isang flower ko, something like that. Yeah, sharing, salo-salo. And literally, every Sunday evening dito sa bahay ko, kasama na aming mga few staff namin dito, kami mga few residents din, ganyan. We chased our chickens, which I and my driver raised through the months. Malaki na ngayon, marami na sila. May pato pa. We chased them and, you know, cook them ourselves, and then salo-salo, literally sitting together with our staff in the evening like that, and eat together. So it's literal, but also our coming together like this is also a salo-salo, sharing our ideas, our experiences is a great expression of being salo-salo. We have become therefore the medium of the message that we would like to put across to the world and to ourselves. So continue our salo-salo, literal man, or, you know, like this, face-to-face like that. And Robert, if you want to eat my chicken, you can come over. You're invited with Jane. Kunti lang, kasi kunti lang manok namin dito. Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you much.
Thank you. Another question would be this, how this forum will influence all levels, hierarchy of churches to do concrete things, not simple or verbal expressions only. Now, we have so many leaders here present. We have Pastor Eric Aldo, Father Kami Kaabay, Pastor Kenneth, Bishop him will take his Bishop Ruel Marigsa, Bishop Tendero, Archbishop Lampon also is here, just spoken, Archbishop Tony Ledesma, Bishop Danny Lopresto, and there's also Dr. Lillian Sison, President of the Religions for Peace. So many, but I'm sure Dr. Aldrin also is here, Zalien, all those reactors. And I know that all of us here knows that these things does not remain only verbally or just, but something deeper. No, there will be experiences afterwards who would answer that would answer these questions. Okay, but in the meantime, I don't know if Bishop Tendero would like to share something regarding this thing. Is Bishop Joel Tendero still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yes,
Thank
Bishop
you,
Tendero.
Robert. Well, in the Southern Tagalog area, our Regional Ecumenical Council is very much active, specifically in Calabarzon area. So we have Southern Tagalog Regional Ecumenical Affairs Movement. In the early 80s, this is primarily an NCCP member churches organization. But later on, for about 3 years now, this is now open not only to the NCCP member churches, but also to Roman Catholic churches and the evangelical groups in Southern Tagalog area. And just recently, we also opened the door to the Muslims in Batangas area. So it's now expanding. It's very important to note that when ecumenism happened in the grassroots, it has no boundaries. It is always open and embracing everyone in order to respond to specific concerns in any areas that we have in Southern Tagalog regions. And actually, there are so many activities that are happening here in Southern Tagalog area, and we are always open to each other, and we are very much active in doing a lot of mission. One specific concerns that we had in Quezon area is that the Quezon Ecumenical Movement, composed of the Roman Catholic churches and the Roman Catholic Church and Protestant churches, are very much active in anti-coal energy sources in Quezon, because there are a lot of coal. What do you call that? It's a coal plant in the area for energy source. We have a very large coal in Pagbilao, Grande. It's a Pagbilao. It's an island, and it's devastating a lot of marine resources in the area. And so both the Roman Catholic Church and the Protestant churches in the area are opposing this the continuing construction of different coal energy sources in Quezon area. We're also doing that in Batangas area. We are also responding to the issue of mining in Batangas. And also in Cavite, we are also responding to the issue of the farmers in Cavite, the one that was mentioned by Reverend Luisito Saliendra. So this area is very much active on ecumenism in the grassroots. And we are moving not only leaders, but we are also moving members of different churches. We are moving members of different churches. Maybe I will appeal to our Dr. Alvin Pinamora, because we have a very limited communication and connection to the evangelicals in the area. Maybe you can send us names and contact persons so that we can engage them in ecumenical movement in this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Joel. So the last, we have the last question here. How can peace and environmental justice be possible in the midst of pandemic? Anyone would like to take this question? How can peace and environmental justice be possible in the midst of pandemic? But I know it's not a Miss Universe question, but it's a tough one. Yes, Kendra.
The question is more addressed to us because usually we are staying in our a safer place than the people in the grassroots. But we always see people, even in the times, even this pandemic times, people in the grassroots, in the communities, in the countrysides are gathering, well, preventing those who abuse their lands. And we can see that in many posts in different social media platforms. They are not afraid of the pandemic because it is more, it's worse. It's worse if they allow those destroyers of environment, those human rights violators doing havoc in the community. So the people in the countrysides, the people there in the respective communities are actually doing the act or the necessary action to promote justice and peace. Here we are doing through this media, through this medium, but the people outside are in the act, in the field, doing what they need to do. So it is difficult for us to imagine how, because we used to be staying in a more relatively comfortable area, place, but the people outside don't care about pandemic. They are acting and doing what they need to do.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Sudlendra. I'll pass the floor now to my partner, Ophel, to present Sister Lisa and Hannah. You're muted. You're still muted. Can you unmute yourself, Ophel?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, but before that, I just would like to thank, you know what, we have 15 bishops in our midst, and we have guests from a priest based in Rome. We have a bishop from the Netherlands, and we have a guest from Hong Kong. So that composes our gathering for today. And to give a concrete manifestation of how ecumenism was embraced and is embraced and will be embraced, let's hear from Sister Maria Lisa Ruedas from the Daughters of Charity. And Miss Hannah Grace Santillan, she is a volunteer of the Christian, of NCCP, and she comes from the United Methodist Church.
Thank you, Ophel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Embracing ecumenism leads me to a deeper appreciation of my identity as a daughter of charity and a consecrated person as well. Engaging with peoples, church leaders, and the different ecumenical groups pushes me to a greater respect, trust, communion, participation, and solidarity of the other. It enlightens my mission to work with and among peoples of the different faiths. These encounters are real breakthroughs of beautiful working, learning, and growing experiences. First, that we can pray together, sharing God's experiences, exchanging insights, reflections, theological and scriptural meanings, and symbols. Second, that we can work together, creating plans and good ideas, and working on the different advocacies for social justice, ecological justice as well, especially for the most vulnerable and defenseless in society, the weak and the suffering, working and promoting justice for the defense of life and human rights, reconciliation and peace to care for a better world, our common home. Thirdly, that we can dialogue together. Dialogue helps build relations and bridges, connecting all peoples and peoples all over the world. To see in the other not an enemy, not a rival, but a brother or sister to be welcomed and embraced. Fourth, that we can bring hope and unity together. To deepen friendships, rediscovering our differences and similarities, so we can witness to unity, trust, respect, and hope that we can love one another. People seeing us loving one another can really witness the presence of God and the challenge of the gospel in us. And lastly, that we can foster unity. I believe that ecumenical works can really foster unity. Trust heals division among us. It eradicates prejudices and discriminations as well. I experience how unity and in the ecumenical groups at the grassroots can witness to the love of God He has for us. That through ecumenical relations, we can embrace one another, such oneness and unity in Christ. Thank you, and God bless us all. May this webinar enlighten us more to deepen our ecumenical relations. God bless.
So now can we have Hannah?
Hello?
Yeah, Hannah.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon to all. Yes, I'm Hannah Grace A. Santillan from United Methodist Church and currently the Program Assistant of NCCP in Program Unit Christian Unity and Ecumenical Relation. As a youth, my journey in ecumenical community was started when I work as an officer of United Methodist Youth Fellowship. It is a Christian youth organization in my church. And then a volunteer in our General Board of Women's Work in United Methodist Church and a longtime member of NCCP Teatro Ecumenical and Kalipunan ng Kristyanong Kabataan sa Pilipinas. These involvements offer me a venue to sharpen my understanding on ecumenism while planning and implementing programs. With all these involvements, I noticed that one, churches are united because of the mission. It's not just for the sake of unity itself, but for the mission which God has actually anointed us to do in Luke 4 verse 18. Let me read it to you. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, rather us, because He has anointed us to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent us to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind and to set oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. This mission or anointment are occurring and felt by the people as the churches translated it by taking action on climate change, human rights, and peace. This embodiment of Christ by Christians and church workers makes the faith not floating or impossible or will just be experienced after life. It is experienced now on earth. This is by solidarity and witnessing to the people who struggle for justice. Example na lang po yung bukod sa mga charity works ng simbahan, ina-address niya yung injustices like the killings, farmers' landlessness, IP displacement, IP which actually our frontliner in protecting the environment and long-time issue on the poverty. Also, I realized that this happy church people and faithful congregations working together, the combined actions and our voices amplify in a wider reach and have impacts in our communities and in this country. In addition, with these unique gifts from the churches they offer in this table, in this big Christian table, they also learn from each other and evolve in much caring churches. Maraming salamat. And I really thank all the church worker who patiently encouraged me to be involved and keep on to be curious, study, and serve. Dito na-realize ko na mas malawak at malalim ang services ng churches maliban sa personal salvation. Nagiging holistic ito. I see it as the love of churches beyond itself. I see it as the church evolved much in beauty as she belongs from the struggling people and she doesn't separate herself. We could reach grassroots ecumenism if ecumenism is part of Sunday school curriculum. The youth and the children would be encouraged and initiated in the local churches to be involved or to be in solidarity. Hindi po tatakutin, no? Pero how can we encourage it? Make it in the language which people understand and make it unites and start the unities needed in their communities. It's kind of churches letting the people practice its faiths. Ayun, maraming salamat po sa buhay at panahon na nilalaan ninyo. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Hannah.
Amen. Thank you po.
And we will see a video presentation to borrow what Hannah has said. And shalom, ecumenism meaning is brought to life if it is a movement where advocating for, participating, partaking, engaging, confronting, and even challenging in unity and solidarity with the rest of the church and in the world. So let's see other programs that concretize ecumenism within our Christian churches.
Nais ko pong ibahagi sa inyo ang ilang mga programa at proyekto na nagiging expression po ng pagkakapatiran ng mga simbahan dito po sa Diocese ng Tarlac at sa Diocese ng Nueva Ecija. Meron pong malapit na pagkakapatiran sina Bishop Bobet Malyari ng Diocese ng San Jose at Bishop Judith Sayas ng Diocese ng Nueva Ecija. Noong minsan po nagkaroon ng pagkakataon na makabisita si Bishop Judith sa programa po ng Romano Katoliko sa pangunguna ni Bishop Malyari, ay nagkaroon po siya ng pagkakataon na makapagbigay ng mga pangangailangan po ng mga inaaruga at inaalagaan po ng programa ng Tahanang Damayang Kristiyano. Nagdala po siya ng mga pagkain, ng mga pangangailangan ng mga matatanda na naroon po ay doon na naninirahan. Noong nagkaroon naman po ng pandemya ay bumisita po si Bishop Malyari kay Bishop Jojit at di lang po siya bumisita kung hindi nagdala po siya ng mga pangangailangan, bigas, gulay, mga delata at doon po ay nakikita ang pagkakapatiran po ng dalawang simbahan. Dito naman po sa Tarlac ay meron din po kaming pakikipag-ugnayan sa Caritas Tarlac sa pangunguna po ni Father Randy Salunga. Meron pong mga kabataan na hindi miyembro ng Romano Katoliko na amin pong inendorso na ngayon sila po ay kasama sa mga pinag-aaral ng Caritas. Ganon din naman po, noong itong nakaraang pandemya ay nagkaloob po ng 10 kabang bigas. Si Father Randy sa pangunguna po niya at ng Caritas Tarlac para po dalhin naman ng mga kaparian at mga kabataang Aglipayano sa mga kapatid po natin na mga Aita at mga magsasaka.
At sa pagkakatatag ng faith-based organization sa Region 3 ay nagsimula na ang mga gawain nating ecumenical at nasubok agad ito sa panahon na tinamaan ang Central Luzon ng isang malakas na lindol last April 2019. Sa area ng Pampanga, sa ating pagtugon, tanging nagawa na lang natin doon ay ma-monitor kung saang-saang lugar na nakapagpaabot ng tulong o relief packs ang iba't ibang mga denominations. Inalam naman natin kung aling mga lugar pa ang mga hindi pa naabutan at yun naman ang finokusan natin. So pinagsama natin yung resources na mayroon tayo. Sa amin sa UCCP, ang kinaya naming ipagkaloob ay mga delata at mga pako at alambre na gagamitin para sa pagtatayo ng kanilang mga tahanan. At sa hanay naman ng IFI, sila naman ang nag-provide ng bigas. At ganun din naman sa area naman ng Zambales sa ating naging pagtugon. Ang PCEC PhilRads ang nagkaloob ng mga food packs. Tayo naman sa hanay ng NCCP ang pagko-coordinate at pagpo-profile ng komunidad na ating tutulungan. At ding itong pandemya na COVID-19 na ating naranasan, nakatuwang naman natin dito ay ang Roman Catholics, particular sa parokya sa San Marcelino. Sa kanila natin ibinagsak yung mga goods at doon na rin nirepack yung mga goods na ito na ipamimigay natin sa ating mga kapatid. Bahagi din ang Rainbow Praise Church. The same time, yung Baclaran Church, yung Vincent Health ay naging kabahagi din sa gawain ng relief operations. So nakita natin na sa pamagitan ng ating sama-samang pagtugon, gamit ang ating mga kakayanan at mga resources na mayroon tayo, kapag pinagsama-sama ito ay mas may malaking impact ito sa komunidad na ating tutulungan. At nakita din ng mga kapatid natin na tinulungan kung papaano ang simbahan ay nagkakaisa sa mga ganitong mga gawain.
Sa ganito pong mga pagkakataon, sa ganito pong mga pangyayari, ay nakikita na ang mga simbahan po ay nagtutulungan para po sa ibayong paglilingkod po sa ating Panginoong Diyos at gayon din po sa ating kapwa. Salamat po.
We in the Apostolic Vicariate of Puerto Princesa try to respond to challenge by working for unity among leaders, different religious traditions. I am just so fortunate that when I came in as the new bishop of the Vicariate, there are already initiatives done to work for unity among religious leaders in the island. When we work for unity, my experience here in Palawan, we work for a common cause like clean election, for peace, for protection of our environment.
Isang kakaibang experience ang makitang sama-sama sa isang worship service ang mula sa iba't ibang simbahan kasama ang mga Katoliko. A post-evaluation was made. Everyone has the same impression. It was good and beautiful. It's good to realize that we have started with only 6 churches, including the Catholic. And now we have grown to 10 members already. But in a special way, our relationship with one another has gone far and beyond, like in a family.
Bagamat kami ay galing sa iba't ibang simbahan,
merong respeto ang makikita at meron yung tinatawag na sense of openness.
The secret of our cohesiveness and about the environment, there's a great consequences. That in Genesis 1:28, God instructed man to subdue or manage the earth and not to destroy it.
Kami ay tiga Salvation Army.
Mahal namin ang kalikasan.
Kami sa Roman Catholic Church, mahal namin ang kalikasan.
Mula sa Capitol United Methodist Church, mahal namin ang kalikasan.
Ang mga bahay naniniwala na dapat tayo magkaisa para malutas natin ang suliranin natin sa kalikasan.
Isa po sa aking 5 marks of mission to strive to safeguard the integrity of God's creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth ay nakikiisa sa interfaith coastal cleanup at panatili nating malinis ang ating kalikasan.
Mula sa San Jose Baptist Church, mahal namin ang kalikasan.
Ang Iglesia Metodista sa Pilipinas, mahal namin ang kalikasan.
Lahat sa UCCP, mahal namin ang kalikasan.
We were all called and sent. It is our duty to unite and focus ourselves how we can protect the environment.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kami ay sumusuporta sa pagpapangalaga sa kalikasan.
Confederation of Jesus Christ Believers and Ministers Incorporated, 100% sumusuporta kami sa coastal cleanup dahil mahal namin ang kalikasan. Mahal namin ang kalikasan.
Wow, what a fantastic thing. So as we can see here, ecumenism is really already ongoing in the grassroots. No? It's a reality. It's not just a dream or something that we're just talking about. It's happening. This is fantastic. Even Bishop Misiona of the Vicariate of Palawan, after that event of the coastal cleaning, sent a circular to all parishes of the diocese, inviting them to take initiatives in anything for the ecological preservation around. No? So all activities, this is something very good. And now just a few highlights to the different things that we see as challenges. No? To all our participants, we invite you to, every challenge is usually an opportunity. So we know also that in ecumenism is a vocation. No? Although we are all called to be ecumenical, not to join, to unite ourselves as brothers and sisters in Christ. We are also, we need to go deeper in that, no? And there's a choice in making that because it's not just building churches. So what we did is to encapsulate these things, how we can participate in these challenges. I would like to read to you the joint statement between the CBCP, Episcopal Commission and Ecumenical Affairs, and then the Ecumenical Bishops Forum and the National Youth Council of Churches. So please allow me to read the joint statement. So the joint statement of the Executive Committee of the Ecumenical Bishops Forum, together with the chairpersons of the Episcopal Commissions on Ecumenical Affairs, Interreligious Dialogue, and Indigenous People of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, welcomes first the declaration of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines year 2020 as the year of ecumenism, interreligious dialogue, and indigenous peoples, in preparation for the 5th centennial of Christianization of our country in 2021. To observe this, the Catholic bishops have proposed constructive dialogue for unity and peace. We commend the statement to the CBCP as a good point of entry. So in this light, the Ecumenical Bishops Forum, which is a forum of Philippine bishops from the various denominations, whose membership is based on their individual capacity as bishops, and the chairman of the Episcopal Commission on Ecumenical Affairs, Episcopal Commission on Interreligious Dialogue, and Episcopal Commission on Indigenous Peoples of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, endeavor us to undertake jointly the following. So first, the intentional conversations at the regional level. And then these conversations to be planned deliberately and spread throughout the whole year. And then these conversations also would be inviting resource speakers, not only coming also from the indigenous peoples, different leaders of the different church denominations. And these conversations also would help us strengthen the level of understanding and find common grounds for cooperation and collaboration. So there will be the dates that would promote ecumenism and unity, and dialogue be planted and implemented. So examples of this would be the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, the Uni-Harmony Week of the Interreligious Dialogue around the first week of February, and then we have the Indigenous Peoples Month, so on and so forth. So there's so many planned activities for the 2021, and we'll be sending you all the invitation and info regarding this. So this international, we pray that these intentional conversations will lead us to convergence in collaboration to address vital issues in our society. Further, that this will promote various convergences for dialogue and unity achieved by our churches in the international level to the communities we serve. So this was formulated by our Bishop Rex Reyes Jr., Ordinary of the Episcopal Diocese of Central Philippines, co-chairperson of the Ecumenical Bishops Forum. So we would like to thank everyone for participating and helping us in this event. Ophel, would you like to continue?
Yeah, we can't thank you enough, all the participants, and as well as and especially our resource speakers, Archbishop Ledesma, Bishop Yuel, our panel reactors, si Father Danny, si Reverend Dr. Aldrin Peñamora, and si Reverend Luis Tito Saliendra. Very rich po ang lahat ng mga, kung pwede lang ilagay natin sa isang box, no? Tapos lagi nating hawak-hawak. But the challenge and opportunities continues. We hope that we will be inspired by the speakers at saka lahat ng mga napanood natin, napakinggan natin ng mga testimonya. Very rich po ang gathering sa hapong ito. We hope to see you again. We have a lot of activities in store for you. Just visit the Facebook page of GCCM Pilipinas, and also mark your calendar on September 15, Spirituality of Human Rights and Environmental Defenders. Tingnan natin, pakinggan natin kung gaano kalalim ang kanilang pananampalataya at pagmamahal sa ating inang kalikasan. With that, maraming salamat po. Robert?
We take profit on thanking everyone, really heartfelt thanks to all participants, and we close with this special prayer that we started. So we give it to the
Dakilang may likha sa kalingat pang-unawa, mangyari ang iyong diwa sa langit at sa lupa. Bigyan mo ng sapat ang lahat sa araw-araw, turo ang magparaya gaya ng iyong gawa. Iadyan niyo kami sa pagmamataas upang maiwaksi ang lupit at dahas. sa kalikasan, kabuhayan, kakanyahan, paniniwala. Siya nawa, siya nawa, siya nawa, siya nawa.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all participants.
Salamat, salamat.